Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Research Page, your source for gear reviews, DIY, and all things filmmaking. In this week's episode, we're actually going to go in a parallax line and bring on a special guest. As you know, I myself had an opportunity to get involved in the 48-hour film project, and we're coming to a close on the Month of Independent Short Film Contest. So I wanted to bring in a special guest and really talk about the experience from setting up to conception and then to final product. So I actually have the team leader, Walter Vinci, coming in, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that and answer some questions and whatnot and see what we get. So let's sit down and get our hands dirty. Here we go. So first and foremost, I want to welcome Walter Vinci to the TRP.
Hello, hello.
So, Walter, had the honor and privilege of working with you and the rest of Four Wall Media this couple weekends ago on the 48-hour film project. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you bring to the table and brought to the table for that particular project?
Let's see. Well, I've been doing the 48-hour film project since about 2009. I got into it through another contestant of the 48-hour film project who's usually there every year. His name's Matt Moran. He was actually my After Effects teacher back at New England Tech when I was going to school there. And I've been into movies ever since I was a little kid. And I was like, you know what? I was debating going to film school, and I said, screw it, I'm just gonna go and just do it. And 2009, I signed up for my first one, and I've been doing it since.
Excellent. I mean, coming from my perspective, as I'm trying to break out really into projects and productions like this, it was definitely an experience. And some of the emails and the stuff that I did get on the Facebook was kind of referencing, the challenge, what type of challenges that you have to come up against and overcome in the 48-hour film project. And in an instance like that, what would you say to someone who's looking at the 48-hour film project and considering getting into it, and what they should really expect?
They should just do it. That's the best way to do it, because you can't prepare for it. You don't know what genre you're getting until the day it starts. You don't know what, they also give you a character, a prop, and a line of dialogue that have to show up in your movie as well. And those, you don't know what those are in advance either until that Friday night. So you figure you get there at 5 o'clock on Friday, 6 o'clock is run about, they have all the teams check in, then they do the big announcement as to what those three items are. You draw your genre, and then off you go. There's no way really you can prepare it. It's one of those things you just have to do it. And the challenge is coming up with something that'll make sense.
Well, I mean, I know, obviously from experience with you, that Mother Nature is never your real friend. What can you tell for those that are working with interesting climates or, come up against, a hurdle such as, weather or a particularly difficult location?
Well, you have to be creative in your shot choices. When we shot, this is the second movie we did where we shot outside. And the first time I shot outside, the weather was just really hot, and I was wearing a three-piece suit because I was actually having a star in it the whole day. And the weather cooperated there, but when you have something where we ran into where it was really nice at the beginning and then broke into near thunderstorms, almost halfway through our shooting schedule, then you've got to be kind of creative in how you go about finishing off your movie. Like, we almost got screwed. Like, if it wasn't for going to Fairhaven and going to check out that little gazebo over at Fort Phoenix, we wouldn't have been able to finish. I would have had to come up with something completely different than what I had originally envisioned. And then what we did after that, we just made sure not to really show too much of the beach, really try to show more of the tree part of the beach area, and then finished it off at a table. So that, we moved from one city to another to finish off the movie, but with the editing and the shot selection, we covered it up pretty well, I think.
Now, I know that, again, that particular project, you were pretty much lead editor, and Lord knows you must not have slept. For more defined people, obviously they have people set up for every particular role. Whereas in the case that we went through, outside of cameras and assistants, you were pretty much the heart and soul of the entire start to finish. You know, was that powered by Monster, or, I mean, did you how do you mentally and physically prepare yourself for lack of better words, 48 hours of no sleep?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm exactly the heart and soul of the thing. Like, I put the team together, and it was more of a collaborative effort because we were all working on and adding our own, input to making the best product we possibly could. So I can't say that I'm like the heart and soul of it. But as far as what we were doing that day, as far as our shot selection goes, I started off editing back at the old TV station at New Bedford High School, using the 2-deck VHS cassettes and one main one in the middle. So I'm used to doing it all analog. So while we're shooting, I'm already thinking where my cuts are all going to be ahead of time, so I know what exactly I want to get shot there, and then try to, as best I can, kind of mimic in real life what I've got going on in my head. Like, so at that point, the story had already been written, and I had the visuals already in my head. And unfortunately, I can't share them with anybody until I actually tell them where I want them to be or how I want them to look at it. And then you have guys like yourself and Hermano who are offering suggestions to go along with it that I think paid off in gold at the end. That you guys came up with some cool shot choices that I hadn't thought of. That when I saw them on your viewfinders while we were going through the motions, I was like, yeah, this will work. And then it gave us more stuff. It gave me more material to be able to edit from. And as far as lack of sleep goes, I think I finished the first edit probably around 2:33 in the morning, and then went to bed. Then woke up at 6 and did a second edit, which I thought was a lot tighter than the first. And then we went from there. We went to doing having Hermano do the effects and all that.
So, in the case of the 48-hour film project, you get out there, you've overcome the obstacles, you've got your inspiration, you've put together your project, you're going to get out there and you're going to make it happen. Being the fact that you're on a time limit, how do you overcome that just director's instinct to do everything 3, 4, and maybe even 5 takes, just so you make sure you have it?
Actually, I read this in I forget which book it was. It was one of the books that I have at home. It says you'll never be able to make the movie you want to make, so make the movie that you can make. So I won't shoot anything more than 3 times if I can help it. I may walk through it a couple times before we actually start rolling tape, just to make sure that I've got kind of the feel that I want out of the actors. But other than that, I don't go anything more than 3 takes. A, because of time, and B, you don't want to tire people out with the same performance over and over again, because it'll wear them out. So I do usually a 3, maybe sometimes I'll push it to 4 shots tops to get a particular shot setup. Other than that, I move on to the next thing. Like, whatever I got is what I'm trying to find a way to work with. And then basically as I'm going along, I'm trying to I'm thinking in my head as I'm setting up for the next shot about how I'm gonna kind of put this all together in the end. Because you always want to make sure you want to stay mindful of your final product. You don't want to have a bunch of disparate shots that when you try to put them together won't make any narrative sense. So I'm trying to how does this fit in with where the story is going? And then when I get if I have this different shot that I've used, well, can I fit that in? Yeah, I think I can if I do this. Or if this doesn't work, then I can always go back to this shot later. Like, if one shot fails and another shot comes out good, then I can kind of work with. I give myself some wiggle room to work with. But I try to keep things as tight as possible.
Okay, from experience, I can say that the biggest thing from the 48-hour film project, other than the experience of doing it, as a infant filmmaker, being able to sit there amongst a room of your peers and other filmmakers and watch on a 60-foot cinema screen your work actually being shown and your name up there for all to see, I mean, that's got a very large impact. And I know as where you have multiple years, doing the 48-hour film projects, how did that impact you that very first time when you got to see yourself, both physically through acting, and then just at the end in the credits crawl as a director or a cinematographer? How did you receive that your very first time?
Um, wasn't so much seeing my name up on the screen that I was so much like concerned with. I wanted to gauge the audience's reaction. That's what did it for me the first time around. Because I swerved very wildly on my first 48-hour film movie, and the ending was not what anybody expected. And the best part, that then what I was going to kick out of was the fact that once that movie screened, there was a stunned silence for a second because the audience was trying to figure out what just happened. And then there was a round of applause. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. That's kind of what I was going for. To kind of like to shut them up for a second, to see if like if I can hit them like a ton of bricks, and that worked. And then they started applauding. I was like, that was pretty cool. And seeing your name up there, that's also cool to me. I mean, it's. I'm more interested in how the audience like perceives it. So I'm listening to what what people are saying like while the movie's playing. Like if people are like chatting about it, or if they're like, oh, that was pretty cool. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that. Seeing my name up on the screen is kind of secondary to me, and then probably right the close second to actually gauging the audience reaction is the Q&A they usually do at the end of the 48. Because I like talking about movies.
I know we have the trifecta, and you're involved in other things outside of just filmmaking. Why don't we talk a little bit more about your own personal endeavors? That is, for lack of better words, first time watches.
Oh, the First Time Watches podcast? It's myself, Hermano de Silva, who's my director of photography. I always describe Hermano as being my Scott Mosier to my Kevin Smith. And then our mutual friend Tim Costa. And all three of us actually at one point, we all worked together. And it took a while for them to adopt the idea of podcasting, because once like podcasting first hit, I adopted it real quick. And then trying to get them on board was interesting to see. Like, come on, you should listen to this. And I'm like, podcasting. Ultimately, they finally came around. They discovered podcasts on their own, and I got the three of us all together, and now we review movies every week. You can find us on Facebook, First Time Watchers Podcast. We have a Twitter feed, 1STTimeWatchers at twitter.com. We have a Tumblr page, which is firsttimewatchers.tumblr.com, and you can also find the feed to our podcast on iTunes if you do First Time Watchers Podcast. And also if you go to firsttimewatchers.blogspot.com, there's actually a live link. You can download the episodes directly.
Excellent. I'm gonna just come right out and go there. When can we expect to see like a First Time Watchers, financed film?
That'd be interesting, actually. I've never thought of that. A First Time Watchers financed film. I'd have to talk to the other two members of the show, but I'll never say never if that's the case, because that'd be kind of awesome.
Well, I mean, again, actually having an opportunity to kind of work with you guys and really see the three of you in action, it really is a trifecta, when you guys go out there and how you kind of feed off of each other, it'd be really nice to, on top of everything that's going on, see the evolution of the First Time Watchers podcast.
So, I mean, if anybody wants to try doing a 48-hour film project, I'd say just jump into it. Just, go for it. I was fortunate enough to have a nice, decent-sized crew, with me. I had you, our lead actress Caitlin Burke, our lead actor Mike Close. We had Tim, we had Hermano, and we had you, and Bethany Whitehead, who's works in theater around the area. And so I had a nice, good core of people to work with. But I shot a movie with only 2 people. So you don't really need that many people to be able to do a 40-hour film project. You could do a single-person movie or a 2-person movie like I did. And just keep it... The idea is you want to do it as simply as possible. You don't want to go anything too crazy or too elaborate because you might not be able to pull it off in those 2 days. So if you can keep things simple and just kind of come up with something straightforward and actually have a good, like a decent story, then you'd be all right. And then you get to see yourself on the big screen, which is always cool.
Special thanks to Walter Vinci for coming down and giving us a little bit of his time. And I guess that's pretty much it for today. So, if you like what you've seen herein, please comment, rate, and or subscribe. I'm JR. This is TRP. I will hopefully see you guys next week. We're going to go ahead and give you a little bit of knowledge that we were able to capture and continue to screw this up.
See, I should have thought about this ahead of time and came up wearing full Vikings gear.
You know, you
That would have been
would, wouldn't
hilarious.
you?